Welcome everyone to the next Community Relations Group conversation. I'm David Planella, Director of Community Relations, and we've got all of the team here to discuss anything that you want to ask us. You should have a link to the presentation. If you have any particular topic where you want us to expand, just let us know. We'll share our screen and we can go into those in detail. Other than that, I think we have already some questions, so we can just jump to them. Right, so Jason, I think you get to sport the badge of honor here for asking the first question in preparation for the call, so thanks a lot for that. Sure. Do you want to vocalize your question?
Sure. So Fossum is this very coming weekend. What's the team looking most forward to, and especially in relation to the community involvement while we're there?
Yeah, thanks, Jason. We're definitely going to miss you here, unlike last year. But I mean, obviously, we're looking forward to meeting with a lot of users and community members that inundated our booth last year. But we have a couple of other activities that we talked about that we're actually going to make it happen. I mean, one is the BOP. We got our BOP proposal accepted for a Sunday, so we get to have an impromptu meetup for an hour in a room. So that's going to be cool. And thanks to the corporate marketing team, they're helping us out with have a nice happy hour in the central part of Brussels. So we'll see how many people show up. So appreciate it if people can retweet. I just tweeted an announcement on the location a little while ago. So yeah, I mean, we're definitely looking forward to it. Looking for a lot of good conversation. I think, David, you added an item there as well.
Yeah, just building up on what Ray is saying. And I mean, Jason, I can also echo that we'll be not looking forward to not meeting you there. But we'll be looking forward to meet some other people who have migrated to GitLab, some of those project leaders, such as contributors from GNOME, KDE, Debian. We'll be seeing them in person. And then we'll be talking to a couple of projects who are either considering migrating to GitLab or have already committed to GitLab. As an example, it's mentioned on the slides, we're going to be talking to the folks from the Eclipse Foundation yeah, seeing how we can assist them in their migration. Then I think, Jason, you've got the next one too.
Indeed, I do. I was just retweeting that link. I'm going to add it to the docs here in a second for everybody else. So the next thing is I noticed that we had a nice swing of meetups, and then there was a bit of a dip, which is pretty classic year-end January holidays. To that end, though, what can other GitLabbers do to assist in either the actual occurrence or encouragement of growth of other meetups in their vicinity? I mean, if you can travel far to get to something distant, that's great. But oftentimes there's a meetup within an hour that we could maybe assist with. But what can we really do to make them better and make more people want to come out?
Yeah, I'll take that one. Thanks for the question, Jason. I think, there's a couple of things to do. One, the most common blockers for meetups and meetup organizers are finding venues and finding speakers. And that goes for whether it's a GitLab meetup or, your local DevOps meetup or, another kind of meetup that's, of interest to you in your area. And so, I could pretty much guarantee that if anyone here wanted to give a talk and reached out to a local meetup organizer about that topic, if it was relevant to the group, the meetup organizer would be very excited not to have to find a speaker and do the outreach themselves. That's a big blocker for all groups, GitLab or otherwise. So reaching out to local folks and offering to give talks at their meetups is always going to be very welcomed. For us as a remote company, we don't have, offices that we can offer up to local organizers to host our events in. And so we're always relying on other folks to welcome us. And so if you have the, kind of network in your area, if folks from other tech companies in the area with an office and they'd be interested in hosting, and there's lots of reasons why companies like to host these types of events. It gives them a chance to kind of show off their office, and a lot of times then they'll have someone from their team kind of speak to the group and talk about open job opportunities, and it's just a good community building activity for them as well. So if you have folks in your network that work in local tech companies that host events, it'd be great to, facilitate those connections between our local organizers, and those potential hosts. And then just finally, if there is no GitLab meetup, in your area and you want to start one, or there is no, DevOps meetup in your area and you want to start one, we're happy to work with, local organizers in getting those groups started. And if you're not necessarily the right person, but you want to see that group get started, feel free to kind of, recruit from your networks in the area, and make introductions to me and the community relations team. And we're happy to kind of drive those conversations, and see if we can get, that kind of group started in partnership with the local organizer.
Okay, quick follow-up on
You
that
have a
one.
follow-up.
So, and speaking of speakers, do people need to actually have existing expertise or content? Do we have paths in place for them to seek help in developing that, or even comfort in delivery? Because I know some people are like, oh, well, I'd kind of like to, but I've never done it before, and I don't have anything to actually talk about. We have stuff we can do, whether they're in or out of company, to help work with that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think meetups are a perfect place for a first-time speaker. So if you're interested in giving a talk and don't have much experience, I would highly recommend starting with a meetup, again, because it can be a blocker for the organizers. They're going to be very likely to accept your talk, whether you have experience or not. And it's just a great place, even if you're going to be giving a talk at a conference, perhaps using a local meetup to kind of pilot the talk and refine it in advance of speaking in front of a bigger audience is a great first step. As far as resources, that GitLab can provide to support speakers, whether first time or not, I'm always happy to work with our meetup speakers, and we do, offer that to our community and GitLab heroes. And we have a technical evangelism team that's been providing a lot of support to potential speakers as well, especially for the commit events. But if someone needed support for a meetup, either I or the technical evangelism team would be happy to step in and take a look at their slides and give feedback and do a rehearsal and kind of all of those steps that lead to a great talk. Thanks for those questions.
I think Sid, you're next.
Yeah, I just want to congratulate on the new record, 248 contributions in a single release. That's really amazing. So great work.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously have a great community, and I think Sid, you and I were also talking about this, like month over month. I mean, going from one release to the next, there's sometimes there could be dips, some seasonality as well. But if you look at a big picture, looking at like a 2018 versus 2019, I was really excited that the number of contributors just about double. So hopefully, we'll definitely try to keep that up in 2020. But it was definitely an exciting way to end the year. So, and thank you for all the reviewers and others in GitLab who help community members reach a new milestone.
For sure, team effort, but thanks, Ray. Great orchestration.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, let us know if anyone has got any would like to have more insight on any of those slides or any of the data on those slides. We also have a couple of discussion points where we would appreciate your feedback. We have a new a new education program manager, Christina, in our team, and she's been working on restructuring the education program. You can see the details on the slides. And then we've also been working on getting some more direct community engagement as well. So anyone in the team will be more than happy to expand on that.
Hey, Ray, while we have the opportunity and we're live on YouTube, where are we having this happy hour at?
Yeah, it's going to be establishment's name is Brewdog. It's right next to the central station. It's very conveniently located. So
In Brussels.
yes, in Brussels. Thank you.
This isn't much of a question, but just listening in on the theme of the call and felt some inspiration from this. I'm going to be reaching out to my local tech community here and see if we can get a DevOps or GitLab themed meetup going within like the near future. We have a few venues around, and we have a local tech group called New Haven IO. So I'll be reaching out to those folks and see if anyone would be interested.
Awesome. Thanks for that.
That's awesome.
Hi there, this is Jamie. How is your tech stack working for you? Are you satisfied with it? You use Zendesk, correct?
Yeah, I think the community advocates team are heavy users of Zendesk, and as a way to essentially centralize how we process all of the mentions on our community response channels, because otherwise we'd be looking at working with 20 different tools. Perhaps what I'll do is I'll let one of the advocates or the advocates chip in on that, and then in the meantime I'll add some links on our handbook that talk about our tech stack.
I can share my experience. I find that Zendesk makes the workflow very, very clear, and it makes it easy for our team to collaborate on following up with different community members who have reached out, or looping back with experts who are having conversations with community members. I also really appreciate the data insight that we get from Zendesk. It's like really simple to be able to go in and check on a daily basis how we're doing on responses, and then on a more long-term basis. I find that's a really strong tool for the work we're doing.
Do you find that it's got a lot of features that you don't use, or is there a tool that maybe is more integrated? Like, I'm thinking of something that's just more like slick and simple. I don't know if these thoughts have ever, if you're thinking about other tools, or you're just completely happy with Zendesk or things.
Yeah, one thing I think that maybe could be improved upon within Zendesk is the different views that we can respond to via Zendesk. So for Twitter, for example, we can respond straight from the Zendesk platform on Twitter, but on Hacker News, we have to leave Zendesk and go to Hacker News to respond. So there is an additional step. I think that as we use Zendesk and continue to grow, we can, if there's a possibility to build those integrations with channels so that we can have our responses more streamlined, that would be nice. I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with another tool that would do that more streamlined.
Yeah, there might not be. It might be like you're talking about building integrations. Do you have an issue of use cases that you'd like to have?
I know that there's an issue right now for different channels that we would also like to bring into Zendesk, like LinkedIn, but I'm not sure if we have an issue for integrations. I think that prior to my time at GitLab, it's already been researched, and perhaps there isn't a way to build an integration for response. I'm not sure if maybe Bora or David can speak to that piece.
I know in the past we have we built an in-house integration for Discuss, but it's not really maintained right now. And also one of the reasons why we changed that was because depending on the integration, you get the generic, perhaps not generic, but you get the response that comes from the main GitLab account. And in some cases, such as, or depending on the social channel, community appreciated more when the response comes from a human, or rather like someone they can associate to. But I think it might be a good idea to assess that, whether we need more integrations to some of the channels, so that we stay more efficient. All right. Did that answer your question, Jamie?
Yes, thank you.
Excellent, thank you. All right, Heather, I think you're next.
Sorry, I couldn't get myself off mute. Hey there. So I was really impressed with seeing all of that great content that's been contributed by our heroes on slides 14 and 15, and was wondering how we're sharing it currently, because it feels like, you know, would be super authentic for our audience to see the kind of content that they're contributing. So just wondering what we're doing there.
Yeah, it's a great question. There's a lot of room for improvement on how we kind of amplify this content. For the most part, you know, right now we kind of retweet their tweets about, you know, the content that they're creating, but we haven't really created a strategy for how we're going to do this over the long term in a way that's really optimized. So I think, you know, thanks for pointing this out, and that's a conversation that I'll need to have with the content and social teams, and possibly, you know, also our, you know, events teams, because a lot of the heroes' contributions are talks at tech events. One plan that we are working on is adding more of this content to the heroes pages on our site, so that when people land on those pages, they see not just who the heroes members are and what the program is, but also kind of the output of, you know, those heroes and kind of what, you know, their contributions are to the community. So that's one thing that's in the works, but I think, you know, a bigger kind of picture plan that aligns with our content and social teams strategies, you know, probably makes sense now that we kind of have a sense of how or what the level of productivity of our heroes is.
Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, that the events strategy, I mean, sounds great. It's always nice to have related content to promote there, but, you know, another avenue might be posting in one of your Slack channels so that team members can help to amplify. Cool, thank you.
Thanks, Heather. Sid, do you want to vocalize your question?
Yeah, very awesome to see statistics about like the percentage that experts respond to, that we have experts or people in the company respond to things instead of the advocates themselves. 3 questions: how are these counted? Like, do we manually need to flag things? Is it a lot of extra work for people? How do you see the percentages changing? And should we maybe move from response time as a KPI to kind of the number of experts responses per team member in the advocacy team? Because involving an expert is going to take longer, and I don't want to disincentivize that. So any thoughts?
Yeah, I'll tackle the first one on how are these counted. I've added a link to the handbook on how we are actually counting them, but I'll add some more context on how we came up to with this workflow. Essentially, we wanted something that wasn't artificial in the advocates workflow, and in the way they manage the tickets and the life cycle of each ticket. And we decided to use a macro so that whenever they see a ticket that requires an expert response, they will use a macro to tag it with a label, and then we'll set the ticket as open. In adding this label, then it goes into the whole data warehouse of Zendesk, and from that label we can tell which questions required expert response and which ones got an actual expert response. And I know Samantha was leading quite a lot of this process. Is there anything else that I've forgotten, Sam?
No, I think that's how we track it. And I find that Zendesk does a really good job, makes it really easy to go and search by that macro so that we can quickly compare how many tickets per channel have been classified with the expert responded macro.
Cool. And then in terms of whether we see them moving, there's something that that we've just literally started tracking now. We started this work before the last group conversation. We cannot really, I mean, I myself cannot really answer that question. Perhaps some of the advocates might have something to say, but it's definitely something that we'll be tracking over time. So yeah, perhaps before we jump to the next part of the question, advocates, anything to add on that one?
I think this is really relevant to a conversation our team was having this week about response time. And on our call yesterday, we were kind of brainstorming what are different influences we think that have increased our response time. And the expert response is definitely something that takes longer. In my own experience, say like on a Friday afternoon, I reach out to an expert to respond. If they're already gone for the day, it could be until Monday morning that that response happens. And so I really agree with this point that perhaps that KPI should change to the increasing the expert responses instead of tracking our response time. Something that we talked about too that could give us a better idea of when advocates are first seeing mentions is if we can sort Zendesk tickets by the first time that they have a macro applied to them. So for example, when we see a tweet that comes in that an expert needs to respond to, we mark it with a link to the Slack message that we've sent with that says like, okay, we've done outreach to the expert and we mark the ticket as open. If we could track that, I think it would give a better vision to the amount of time it's taking for advocates to see and act on a mention rather than respond to a mention.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And maybe some background, like I think when the advocates were responsible for responding, it was in your own hands. Now it no longer is. I think it's still good to track like, hey, when did we first act on this? When did the expert respond? Maybe as an internal metric. Also, maybe at some point tell our people internally to respond faster. If I think of the core kind of task of the team, it's kind of to be that connective issue between the outside world, oh my goodness, now I'm talking about it as outside world, between the wider community and our team members, and making sure that like it's impossible for our team members to just scour the entire internet, but the community advocates can do that and then point it to the right expert. So maybe that's there. Maybe if you have to select one metric, that is it. How many experts did we get to respond? And then of course, we're all about efficiency. So with how few team members were we able to do that so that we have a thing that kind of stays stable over time as the team grows or shrinks or things happen. Like obviously if you have more people, you can respond to more tickets.
Thanks. And I think moving on, we've got about 2 minutes left. Brian, do you want to vocalize your question, please?
Sure, I'd be happy to, thanks. I sort of credit community relations with recruiting me. I was doing code review on a scholarly research paper, and I discovered GitLab that way. And then I decided to jump in because I saw via Twitter that a hackathon was going on, and Ray and the gang gave me a great experience there, and I decided to apply. So I just wondered if we track people who have a story like that, who effectively get recruited because of our community relations efforts, or if we've studied that, or if we do anything actively to encourage it. I know when I first spoke at a Connect event, I did the recruiting pitch, but is it something that we regularly do? Thanks.
Ray, I think you're muted.
Sorry, I'm on mute. So, well, thanks, Brian. Yeah, I mean, the short answer is, I mean, this might be a good question to ask, like a potentially people ops team. I mean, I don't have any hard data, and I've seen anecdotes where I mean, even Greg, who's on the call, showed me the Firsttime mug he got before he joined. So I know of several people that have joined after contributing over the past 18, 19 months. But even before, like all of us in the community relations team came to GitLab, I mean, there are a lot of people that have been here for a long time that started out as contributors. So it'll be interesting to see a stat. But I know people, especially on the engineering side of things, I mean, typically started as a contributor and that's how they joined the company. But yeah, good question though.
Yeah, I was able to wear my socks to my interview. You sent me socks for my first MR, and I like to joke that it was a terrible deal for GitLab, but I got the great socks.
Glad you're here.
That's an awesome story. Thanks for sharing that. All right, we're over time. Perhaps the last one, Sid, is there anything do you want to vocalize on your last comment? Or
no, I also want to call out, it's been called out before, but awesome to see all those blog posts by heroes. Really great work. Really impressed with the progress the team as a whole has made. This is awesome.
Excellent. So with this, thanks a lot, everyone, for your questions. Thanks a lot for taking notes and participating in answering. And I think we can leave it here for today and see you online. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.